Happy Friday afternoon. This is Jim Bachman with the Brewers Association of Maryland checking in with you. We're going to have a wonderful conversation today with Matt and Jared over at Calvert Brewing Company. Really looking forward to this talk. I had a chance to hang out with these guys last week a little bit while we were working on a secret project that we'll let you know about during our conversation today. And I think you're going to be very impressed. They've got a great team over at Calvert. They're making some wonderful beers, and I can't wait to check in with them and find out what they're up to. Before we get started, though, I would like to remind everybody that Maryland breweries are open for your business. They would love to see you guys coming in this weekend, showing your support with either a carry-out purchase, purchase for pickup, or come in and enjoy a beer while you're at the brewery. Plenty of our breweries are observing social distancing. They're doing the proper things with face masks and making these environments very safe for you and your loved ones to come and gather and have delicious beer. If you're looking for any updates about what we're up to, marylandbeer.org is your destination for all of that information. And let's jump right into it. Jared, Matt, how we doing, guys?
Doing great. How about yourself, man?
I couldn't be any better. I am very happy to have you guys on.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday. The beers are delicious. I'm enjoying some Calvert Brewing Company beer right this second also. So thank you very much for brewing delicious beer for me to bring back to Frederick and enjoy.
Awesome. You do it.
Thank you for having me last week. I don't know how often I can say you guys were awesome hosts. We had a great time walking around the brewery and learning about what you were doing. So for people who are viewing this who may not have been to Calvert Brewing Company before, can you guys introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what you do and what the brewery is all about?
Yeah, so we're located in Upper Marlboro, just pretty much just south of Route 50 Route 50, right on Route 3. Or 301, depending on where we are. We've been here for about 4 years. We actually had a pseudo anniversary party March 21st. And if you know what that means we didn't have an anniversary party. So that was our 4th year here in this location.
2020.
So lots of fun stuff. But yeah, no, we have a 24,000 square foot production facility, of which a majority of it's actually taken up with our cold box, which, like I said to you, Jim, is probably one of the largest ones in the state, especially on the craft beer side. But that's kind of us. And then what do we do?
Well, we try to make delicious beer first off, but our main goal is to try to make quality craft beer. We focus on a variety of styles. Obviously a lot of IPAs because people love them, we love them. But we have a variety. Everything from lagers to sours. I guess that's
And if you're watching, the gentleman with the black face mask and the hat on is Jared. He is the brewer at Calvert Brewing Company. And the tall ginger man is Matt. He is the manager of all things Calvert Brewing Company. And, together they make a hell of a team, and they're doing some great stuff. So keep up all of the great work. We've got a great lineup of beer to talk about. Matt, when we were there, we were talking about your cold box. Many people may not know it, but it is the location that we use for the Maryland Craft Beer Festival as a staging and holding location for all the beer entries. We do all the sorting for the competition there, and then the judges actually judge at Calvert. And we hope that that's going to happen into the future, but things are a little uncertain with how the world's working. But you were telling us some really cool facts about that cold box, and you mentioned it again here. Can you tell us a little bit about what that building was before and why that cold box is built out as big as it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the main reasons why we chose this location was because of that cold box. So this facility itself, where we are, used to actually be a Starbucks distribution center. So the Starbucks distribution center, they obviously use this location as a kind of a means to distribute to all their retail locations. But ultimately, it's 8,000 square foot cold box that is just massive. We've never been able to actually fill this thing. As we discussed, Jim, when COVID really kind of shut the state down, we had to shut half the cold box, the units off itself, because it was literally just blowing air around because there was just no inventory in that cold box. And as you saw, even with kind of ramping back up production, et cetera, there still really isn't much in there. So it's kind of a unique situation. Like I said, it's
Hey, having been to a lot of breweries before and having to move kegs around to make room for new kegs and stacking and it's awful. So for me it's a good problem to have. I'm good with it.
So I worked in a brewery that was originally built in 1930 as an ice cream factory, and the cold box was like surrounded by 8.5 inches of solid cork insulation, but it was only like maybe 10 feet tall. So driving a forklift in there and trying to get things maneuvered was a nightmare. And every time I come to your cold box, I'm like, man, I would have so much fun on a forklift in this place.
And we do.
So you guys have done a whole lot to brew beer for your own brand, but you have a ton of capacity. You have a bunch of stuff that's kind of state of the art about your brew house and your setup there for the region and for the East Coast. Can you talk a little bit about how that's helped you guys be able to produce the wide variety of beers you make, plus work with some of the other breweries in the region as a contractor?
Yeah, I mean, so our brew house is unique. We have something called a mash filter. So in place of where normally you would see a brewery have a lauter tun where they'd have a false bottom, and that's kind of where they would lauter all of the wort off of the grain. We have a mash filter. So it basically works as a gigantic press that we send our mash into, and then we literally squeeze it. It's held under at 4,000 psi, and then we fill the bladders within it with water to squeeze every little bit out. What happens is that we actually are able to extract well over 90% of all liquids that we use, thus reducing the overall amount of liquid that we have to use. But Matt and I, we both have lived in California for years, something like that where you're using less water is just so nice. And so that's kind of the advantage of the mash filter, and just the efficiencies you get off it are awesome. And it allows us a wide range of styles. It can make really clean beers. You can still clearly obviously make hazy beers, etc. But if you really wanted to make something just crystal clear, that mash filtration system is awesome for it as well. So that's kind of a really nice thing. We also have a fully automated canning line. It's beautiful. It's a Cody line. So, we can do, as much as, when it's fully going and running well, we can do like 2 cases a minute. And so that kind of allows us a lot of flexibility to be able to, run a lot of beer. And so, that alone is just something that's really nice to have. But yeah.
Yeah. Nice and said.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I think what's unique about what you guys are doing, and I don't want to hammer too much on it because you guys are making your own beer and you're making great beer, but this idea of being a location where small startup breweries or breweries in the region who may not have access to the equipment that they may need to scale up the way that they want to, you guys are kind of a destination for some of those companies, and you've helped several Maryland breweries. I know you're helping a couple of breweries in DC and Virginia. What is that process like?
It's really nice. Working with the other breweries, so often at a brewery, you're just kind of on your own, doing your own thing. And then here we actually get to basically collaborate all the time with other breweries. So, we have Soul Mega in DC, who are a brand new brewery that don't have a facility yet, but they're able to actually start getting their product on the market, thanks to the fact that, we can make it with them here. And those guys are awesome. And so they'll come by and, we'll brew up a batch together. And, we have many other accounts here in Maryland as well. And then for some of those accounts, it might be an issue of, they have a brew house, but maybe they don't have that kind of packaging capacity that we do. And we can make so much. I mean, some of our, fermenters are 100 barrels. So, we have that ability, and we can kind of, make a smaller brewer be able to really release a wide range package that would take them, a week to package off with like a tiny little canning line or something. And so, it's really nice that, we're able to provide that. And for me, it's wonderful getting to work with those brewers.
Well, to add to that too, Jim, is, it's interesting is, yes, we do contract work. We do, kind of collab, if you will, with that regard. But at the same time, we don't just, how do I say this, without being arrogant, but I mean, we just don't take anybody in. It really is kind of like a scenario where we have to not necessarily want to say or use vet in that regard. We're not going through like these deep backgrounds on people or anything else like that. But when we have our initial conversations, it's kind of important to see what their approach to this is. And if somebody comes to us and says, hey, here's a brand, I just want you to put an IPA in this can, and you guys create the recipe, you guys do this, you basically go from starting point to end point, and you'll never see us. Those are not the people we want to kind of do business with. Because they're not real breweries. In my mind, they're not a brewery. It's the dirty part of craft beer. It's the people that on the outside think that they can just jump in and put no effort behind it and actually create something. That's just not what we want. We want to help. We want to try to kind of grow this industry the right way. Make sure that each one of our partners are actually part of the process, like Forward Brewing, for instance. We've produced a few things for them, and they're a great group. Between Cam and Warren, I mean, we see they're here almost every week, and not necessarily just not necessarily just because we're brewing with them. It's just they're local. I mean, they're local. They're here all the time. We have great conversations. We bounce different ideas off of each other when it comes to the business side, when it comes to beer. And those are the great relationships I think that we have within kind of this structure with contract brewing.
Well, and that's what's awesome about craft beer. I mean, craft beer is such a community. And so, that's one of the things that we really look for when we're doing our contracting as well, is, only building that community and growing our friendships with other breweries.
Yeah. And I don't want to tell too many stories about the things that I get to witness when I come and visit you guys, but you did have one of your contract partners there come in and check in while we were there hanging out. And, I could just read the language from the room about how you were approaching tasting this beer, what changes may have been made to it to address certain specific aspects of the recipe that you had already discussed. And just hearing that there truly was this real synergy between the thought of what your partner had versus what you're able to execute, and how you're doing it in a way that's going to ensure that not only are you putting your name on something that you can stand behind, but is also going to elevate this person's new brand is awesome. And I think that that's what people don't really get to see any of in this industry. So I think that that's commendable, and I think you guys are hitting all those marks.
Well, I mean, like I said before, we want to make good beer. And so if we have a contract and it says, I'd like to see us punch it up like this and this, then we're happy to, really make suggestions and work together to make the best product we can and make everybody happy, the consumer first, especially.
That's awesome. Well, in the spirit of collaboration, those of you watching this afternoon are going to get a little bit of a sneak peek into a pretty cool thing that BAM is working on. Keep your eyes open over the next few days on our social media and on our website. We're going to be announcing several collaborations coming out of Maryland breweries who have hosted other Maryland breweries to come together and build out a series of beers that are going to be available for sale exclusively through BAM at first. We will have all the details in the coming week, but Calvert is one of our host breweries, and they're going to be releasing a pretty epic beer. Since I have you on, is it too early to kind of share a little bit about that?
No,
tell people what we're excited about?
I was actually tasting it earlier today. To kind of balance out the pack, I won't, discuss what else is in it, but, we wanted to make something that was crisp, clean, but, cutting edge and still innovative. And even though it's not, that new of a style, it is something that's very in vogue right now, and I absolutely love. It's the Italian Pilsner. So it's a dry hop Pilsner done in a more traditional method, not using new age hops, like really focusing on, those noble variety flavors, but getting, a nice bitter wallop while still having like a dry hop as well, using those noble varieties. We were so fortunate that we got to work together with Forward and Denizens and Elk River. It was having those guys over and all working together while putting together the beer was it was awesome. And so I was tasting it today, and it was tasting wonderful. And we'll be lagering that for a good period of time, getting ready for that release. So we wanted to, really jump on it early so that way it could have like a really nice extended lagering time. But I'm excited about that beer. It's actually a gift and a curse to have it in a fermenter. I want it to get a proper lager, and I want it to sit for a while and have time, but I also want to drink it very badly. So yeah.
Patience is a virtue, isn't that what they say?
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's awesome. It's we used basically 4 major hop varietals. We used some Saaz, some Pearls, and we actually used some Kazbek hops, which is a hop that I hadn't messed with as much, but Jeff over at Denizens was he uses it and loves it, and I opened the bag and smelled it, and it's just like I get a lot of those like wonderful noble spices, but also like a little bit of that lemon peel, and it's just I think it's going to be great.
So if any of you who are viewing right now have been looking back through our Instagram stories over the last few weeks and seen us dropping into a few breweries, the reason we're doing that is to capture some really good content, to release some great things for you guys as part of this collab project. We've got really great beers coming out from some really great breweries. Calvert Brewing is obviously one of our hosts, Idiom Brewing Company, True Respite Brewing, and I don't know why I'm blanking on the last one, BC Brewery in Baltimore.
Yeah.
We've got a great group of host breweries who have come together with breweries from throughout the state to brew some really, really exciting beers, and we cannot wait to share them all with you. Matt and I were talking that morning about Scott from Elk River coming down. It's like, that is a haul, to make that commitment to come out and collaborate on something like this. But
I didn't realize how far. He said it was almost a 2-hour drive.
Yeah, and the goal is to just make sure that the industry is involved and you guys are sharing each other's thoughts and input and getting these really great collaborative releases done. And ultimately, you guys are providing the Brewers Association with an opportunity to generate some revenue directly to the consumer, and it's a really cool project. So everybody who's out there, keep an eye out for more details. We're really excited about this, and we can't wait. So let's get to the things that people can buy from you now. Let's talk about what's your guiding light with beer right now. What are you guys doing? What's making you excited? Point us in the direction of what you guys are up to.
Yeah, so I guess ultimately when it comes down to it is, as every other brewery, we stand by an IPA. It's our basically our cornerstone of the company. Excellent Adventure pretty much has sold more product than I think we've made of any other brand combined. It is our flagship IPA. It's a newer flagship for us. It used to, about 2 years ago, it actually used to be a limited release. We started it off as a limited release, and that's kind of ballooned and taken off into just being the powerhouse, if you will, of Calvert Brewing. It's seen about probably 50 different iterations, and quite frankly, it's going to constantly see a new iteration almost every time. The beer that you pick up today, or the beer that you drank actually early this week, Jim, is different from the version that's actually in my hand, and it's actually different from the version that's in the tank. And one of the things that not many people know is we actually just changed the dry hopping almost every time. So we change the hop profile as frequently as possible, because again, it's
well, hops from year to year do change. So I mean, to marry or to really be, I'm absolutely putting this much of this hop in, year to year. I mean, like, the Azaka we get last year is different than the Azaka we get this year, and so the idea is that we want to make the best blend we can to make the best product we can. And, we update that and taste every single batch and decide, how do we want to change it on the next batch to make it, that much better. And especially as we get these new hops, like right now, we're starting to get to that time of year where we will be getting all new varieties, from the 2020 harvest. But yeah, I mean, it's a delicious beer that's, it's bursting with that citrus flavor from the Azaka, the Amarillo, and Idaho 7 that we use in it. And, it's kind of our homage to Hazy while still keeping a crisp, clean IPA that is, you know, not too full bodied, but just something that you can really drink. And at 7%, it'll catch up to you and you won't even realize it. But yeah, a really nice IPA.
It is a very nice IPA, and I think it's nice that you're mentioning this idea of, you know, the numerous takes that you have on this beer. A lot of times when we have these conversations, it comes up that there's this, you know, ultimate pursuit for the perfection of what that beer is supposed to be. So I know that that's like creeping in the back of your mind every time you sample it. Like, what can we do just to edge it up a little bit more?
Right. And honestly, I've never found that with any product you ever reach that ultimate perfection. You can always make it a little better. And so I'm always going to be striving for with that tiny, even if it's a tiny bit, like 1 more pound of this versus that, you know. It might be minute, but it's not minute. You know, at the end of the day, it makes a better product, and that's
1/100th of a volume of CO2 or something. You know, like whatever it is, it's going to be. It's going to make a difference, and it could impact the beer. I also think it's really cool how you're talking about how you kind of what I'm hearing is that you have like an idea for what you want your hop profile to be aromatically, and if you can't hit it because of variations in harvest or harvest year or something like that, you're able to adjust and overall kind of meet what that flavor element is supposed to be without necessarily being exactly the same thing every time.
Exactly. I mean, I never want to look at beer in such a stubborn light that it has to be exactly this recipe every time, because there's so much that changes, you know. I mean, everything from water profile to the actual, hop crop. And so we analyze that all the time, and we update our recipes to make sure that we're making the best beer we can.
I think it's also pretty fitting that as a flagship beer with the name Excellent Adventure, it is kind of taking the drinker on an adventure every time they experience it. So that's kind of cool.
This is true.
Yeah, it's double entendre, if you will. It's 2 meanings, right?
Yeah.
It's always a story.
One of the other things that I want to commend you guys on that I've noticed is you're very good at embracing nostalgic imagery from pop culture. So there's no hate on that at all. I think it's great. And I'm looking at your beer names and your label artwork, and I'm like, yeah, they know what they're up to. So keep up the good work there. You're putting a smile on people's faces.
What do you mean?
So, Matt, you deal a lot with your wholesale and retail partners. How far throughout the state of Maryland and in the region can people find Calvert beer, and where can they pick up Excellent Adventure? Like anywhere they want to go?
I'd say, it's interesting. Southern Maryland, Excellent Adventure is, I think I have over 200 points of distribution in Southern Maryland. I'm actually, screw it, I don't care. I'll just give a quick shout out to all of them. So Bozic, our wholesaler for Southern Maryland, absolutely just has embraced us since day one. They have come to the table, and their entire sales team has said, you know what, I'm going to make Calvert Brewing our number one in their craft portfolio. They cover for us Prince George's and South. So for the rest of the state. Then we go up north a little bit. You look over at Anne Arundel County, and we are with DM. It's amazing what they can accomplish with just such a large, small territory. I mean, they only cover Anne Arundel, and their spread is phenomenal. Then we look up a little bit north. We go to Baltimore and Carroll and Howard and Cecil, etc. We're doing better there. Excellent Adventure is growing as a brand in that location, but at the same time, it's difficult to find up there. We have Republic National, which is truthfully a liquor wholesaler, but they are doing the best they can right now, and between our sales team trying to push it as much as possible, it's expanding. It still is number one with that wholesaler, in our portfolio, but at the same time, it's still needs some help. Then we switch over to kind of our, I guess ultimately, I don't know how to explain it, but Craft Coalition came in last year. Jason and I sat down. I think it was probably like August of last year, and Jason and I just had an earnest conversation, and it was really is different. And I know you've known Jason now for quite some time, and Jason's just a really good person. He's a great ambassador in this industry. He has done great things within this state, and kind of with his background, everything else like that. But he's just I don't know how to explain it, but Craft Coalition is just a beautiful thing. We launched Frederick earlier this year. I think we actually got into the Frederick area in Allegheny and Washington a little later on. I want to say probably around February, but Tony up there for his team is just absolutely killing it. And, there's some great retail accounts up in the area that, you live, obviously. And I love Frederick. I think it's a freaking phenomenal location. But yeah, it's pretty much, everything on the Eastern Shore. I hate to even say that. I'm not from here, so it's like Eastern Shore doesn't make sense to me. But, everything on this side of the bridge, if you will, you can find it pretty much everywhere. Anybody knows what the struggles are on the other side of the bridge, but it's phenomenal. You can find it pretty much in a lot of almost every major key account, if you will, in Maryland has Excellent Adventure and Crush a Lot, actually.
Well, that's great. And I ask that because I like when people understand that the accessibility to some of the beer that we talk about on these afternoon conversations is a lot more approachable and available to them than they might assume. You're kind of inundated when you walk into your favorite liquor store or craft beer retailer, even if they do have sections that feature all local cans and bottles. If there are 300 or 400 labels there, it's going to be hard to suss out what you're looking for. So I like to ask always where the availability might be that people can find this. And obviously they can pick it up in your tasting room. Yeah. You guys do crowlers. You have cans to go. So there are opportunities for people to come there and enjoy the beer and take it with them when they leave.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do, to your point, and we run kind of two programs. I think you and I discussed this last week, was we run a core brand product. They're in 12 ounces. They're modestly available pretty much all the time and everywhere. And then we run like the one-offs, and some of the naming, et cetera. Like you're drinking the Buzz the Tower right now. Well, we're sold out of that. That was a one-time kind of drop, if you will. It's been a one-time drop. Pretty much on every 3-week basis, we have something new that comes out, and it is for the consumer that wants something different every single minute of their lives. And that's definitely where we've gotten, I think, in this industry is, a lot of the consumers now just look at it and say, all right, well, I've had that now. What's next?
Rotation Nation.
Yeah, it's Rotation Nation. And, back in the day, it used to only be really on the on-premise. It almost used to only really be on the draft lines. And now it's kind of everywhere. It's spread.
I remember the days of walking into a retailer and trying to push them on a seasonal beer, and they're like, "That's great, but I need your Kolsch and your IPA." And it's like, "Okay, you got those, but like, do you want to add anything else?"
As a brewer, I'm a fan because it constantly allows me to make something different, to constantly do new things, etc. So it's great. It's nice to make something. Continually, like Excellent Adventure, where you can really hone it in and dial it in. Whereas when it's a one shot, you've got an idea of what it's going to be and you try to put it together as best you can, but you're not necessarily going to get another chance to dial that one in, but it's still fun. It allows just so much creativity and for us to have just fun with beer.
So if you guys are watching right now, I am adding all of the descriptions of the beers that we're covering right into the chat. I'm pulling those from Calvert's website so you guys can review what those are and know all about what they have going on in terms of their beer descriptions, ABVs, stuff like that. If you have questions for Jared or Matt, please do not hesitate to post them here. We are happy to answer them and keep you guys engaged as part of our little conversation this afternoon. Matt, you were just teasing the can for I Just Crush a Lot. Do you want me to throw that up?
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure
about
it. So anyway, I'll just pull it up a little bit. So it's a little bit hard, obviously, to see, but at the same time, the imagery itself is literally just a hand in the middle of the design, and it's crushing fruit. There's definitely, obviously, an origin story on that, but at the same time, I guess ultimately, it's pretty much anybody that listens to hip hop would understand that innuendo. But it's a great product. Last year we kind of looked at our portfolio and said, well, it's kind of boring. It's really not. It's not for today's consumer. We really need to start looking at. kind of where the new trends are heading towards. So we brought to the table a sour, right? Kettle sour, traditional kettle sour, with the intention to actually change it on a regular basis. So the first iteration was a plum and blackberry, and I think that was my personal favorite. I really liked the combination between the two fruits, but at the same time, the consumer looked at it and said plum and was like, I don't know about plum. That's not something I'm kind of keen on. And I said, all right, well, that's fine. So let's change it up a little bit. And we went with the blood orange, and the blood orange was really nice. And we've had that one now for this entire year, actually. And we're actually just at that point, and breaking news to you is in probably about mid-November, we're going to switch over and we're going to have
Tart cherry.
Yeah, it's going to be a tart cherry and peach. So it's going to be phenomenal. And I think with this brand, it's such a beautiful thing. I mean, the base is the base, right? And you know how this works, but the base is the base, and what we do post fermentation is we look to actually start adding the fruits and seeing kind of what the fruit itself can bring to it. And it's so nice because each variant has been so different, and they all really meld themselves together to really work in unison. And the crush aspect is 100% true. I mean, so many times I've had kettle sours that really can turn my stomach. And even I've had some of the best like true traditional sours, and even some of the kettle sours can turn my stomach, whereas the Bretts don't. But
we keep this on the tart side, but we don't go too crazy with lowering the pH. To make it approachable, drinkable. It's definitely a tart beer, but it's not something that you're gonna like. Oh, you have, and it's just gonna knock you back a bit. Which nothing wrong with that. But yeah, this is supposed to be exactly that, something that you can crush. So
I really do enjoy it.
It's super bright. The blood orange really comes out. That's it's beautiful looking. But I'm excited that Matt and I were sitting down, and we sat down with the rest of the team, and we're thinking about what fruits to change it to, and we really wanted to totally change it away from the blood orange to make something unique and different. And so tart cherry came to mind, and then we wanted a little something sweet to kind of marry with that, and so we went with peach, and so we're pumped. I can't wait to bring that beer out for you guys.
Very cool. I like the idea of taking this base beer that that you're hitting the mark with, and find different ways to bring an iteration out. The idea of variance. It's something that your consumer is going to demand, and it's something that gives you the opportunity to play around with ways to express this beer differently. And I think that's very cool. Yeah. Before we move on to the next beer, Jason does have a question for Matt. He wants to know, why is Playground Legend so awesome, and when is it coming back?
So Jason's awesome. Jason, we have a club. It's the Den Club, and the Den members. Jason's a fantastic partner in here, and Playground Legend is actually, as we were talking about the competition aspect, we threw Playground Legend in there in the double IPA category for the state of Maryland last year, and kind of like as a we're not going to win for this one. We're probably not even going to place for it, but we really, really like the Playground Legend. And I get a phone call saying, hey, and I didn't know this because I didn't go for the picnic. I get a phone call like, hey, you guys definitely have to be here. You guys want a medal? And I was like, okay, that's cool, right? So we jump up to I'm spacing on the location. Jim, help me out here.
The Shrine of St. Anthony.
Thank you. And we jump up for the event, and I'm sitting there, and I was like, I knew obviously which beers we entered in which categories, and I think one of the first ones that gets called up there was the double IPA, and I was like, all right, well, Playground's not going to win. I was focused actually on the lager aspect. I really wanted us to win for 7th State, and sitting there, and I'm like, all right, well, Calvert Brewing, Playground Legend, gold. I was like, whoa. I was like, how the heck did this happen? It was kind of like a, what the heck happened? And in some of the photos and stuff, that's pure excitement because I wasn't aware of it. I really wasn't ready for that. I didn't know that was going to happen, and no one else told me. I actually talked to Dave Blackman from Smoketown, And he's like, "Oh yeah, I was gonna reach out to you, but I didn't see you at the picnic, so I didn't want to like kind of ruin it for you." And I was like, "I'm glad you didn't." But Playground Legend is like I said, a phenomenal beer. For me, it's Cheater hops, it's Citra Mosaic, and Simcoe, which I personally really love. Simcoe. I don't think it gets used enough anymore in today's beers, but at the same time, it's a beautiful beer. It's a very well balanced beer, especially for 9%.
I've come across a lot of people who feel the exact opposite way about Simcoe.
Yeah.
That catty character sometimes can scare people off.
We do have a West Coast coming up with that's Simcoe heavy. So
nice.
Yeah,
we're excited for that.
Yeah.
Well, it's great that you're talking about how engaged your fan base is, and it's great to see them here. Jason, thank you for posting your question, and it's nice to have that recognition when Matt sees your name. He knows exactly who it is that's bothering him, so that's good stuff.
You never answered the question though.
When's
it coming back?
Good call. Yeah. So for me, it's too much of a good thing is too much. So Jason's gonna have to wait until sometime next year.
Yeah, maybe early in the year, maybe. Yeah. We'll see.
It's. I mean, honestly, it was interesting. So last year we did it as it was our very first kind of monthly release that we ever kind of put out there, and the price point's pretty hefty. It's an expensive product to make and everything else like that. And people looked at us, retailers were like, "What the hell are you doing? It's just too much. It's too much." And then they tried it and they're like, "Okay, well, I'll take it half." And then the complaints were no longer the price point. The complaints were, "Well, why did you sell out of it? And why didn't I get one?" And I knew we had something positive there. And this year I was like, okay, well, Playground did so well last year. I want to just see what happens. And we did the same thing. We sold out of it probably faster than we have really ever of any of the brands. And as soon as we told people we were going to release it, we had huge engagement. And the same thing, like Jason came up to the tasting room and, I posted into like a small private Facebook group. And Jason was here, at 2:59 beating on the door to try to come in and get it. So, it is a great beer. But at the same point, like I said, I don't want it to be available all the time because it won't be as,
special.
It won't be as special. So we'll release it next year.
Why not give people an opportunity to look forward to something instead of just always have it available?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually drinking Berry Vice as well, which was one of those as well that we re-released this year for last year. And I think you've had that before, haven't you?
I have.
Yeah.
So the next one I have on the list from the list you gave me earlier was your 7th State Golden Lager. This has got a great story for you guys. Do you want to talk about this beer now?
Yeah, I'll talk about the story behind it. And this is actually, I probably shouldn't have put so much gold in the label, but so if you see the big green tractor, that big green tractor is a John Deere tractor. Obviously it doesn't say it on there because I'm not going to spend money on copyright. And then there's a little chicken coop there. And on the other side is a little hop vines. So the story behind this label is we started as a farm brewery. We started as a farm brewery down in Prince Frederick, down at Running Hare Vineyard. That was about 6 years ago. So we started down there, and every bit of this image is actually the farm. So the tractor is what obviously was down there, would help move some of the materials from the chicken coop, where we actually brewed on the 1-barrel system, which actually was brewed on yesterday here. We've moved all operations up here, but the chicken coop is actually where we used to have everything ferment, where we would brew, where we would package. It's kind of an interesting thing. There'd be literally chickens on the side trying to ferment away, and not exactly a clean environment, but you may do with what you had. And then the hop vines themselves are just there. It was used for those beers. Once a year we'd do a harvest and pull the vines down and kind of pick off what we could. And it's very, labor intensive, but yeah, ultimately it's, we wanted to kind of give a homage to that. And then there's kind of some other deep rooted aspects of the label itself are actually the hills. And why we chose the agricultural side is just that it's brewing in Maryland, and Maryland in itself is an ag state. You know, we actually utilize the agricultural part of the government to get rid of our grain. We don't dump anything down the drain. We actually, so thanks. We actually take all the grain and we offer it off to some of the local farmers, etc. And I know most breweries do that, but you know,
some farmers is actually named Farmer John. That's a real thing. I love it.
But it's really interesting because, like I said, we actually had the county. We had Prince George's County call us up and say, "Hey, we want to come talk to you about your wastewater." And I said, "Well, what do you want to talk about?" And they're like, "Well, you know, you dump solids down there. You know, we know you make beer." And I said, "Well, that's actually not true. We don't dump any solids down." And you know, they proceeded to ask a few more questions, and I told them, I said, well, actually, you know, we provide all of our grain to farmers. And she asked, well, at fee, you know, for cost, and I said, no, it's free. You know, we just offer it up. It's something that's a spent product for us. We can't utilize it any longer. I think you can only make so many dog biscuits out of it. So. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, we offer it up, and she was actually amazed by that. She's like, okay, yeah, I don't need to come out then. So I hope they're not listening, but.
So yeah, several years ago, there was actually a little bit of a concern that there may be some action coming from the state to basically have breweries go through, sample, get all of this analytical information about the grain, and then have to register it in order to transfer it to a farmer. And the concern was that it was a commercial deal. And, you know, when the big thing was, all these brewers came out and were like, nobody's making money on this. Everybody's giving this away. It's waste for us, and it would cost us money to move it. So this is, you know, this is a saving program.
That's crazy.
And I remember that once everybody got on the same page with how spent grain was being dealt with, it was like so enlightening to everybody. And the agricultural side of the state was very impressed with how, you know, the farmers that they work with every day are able to utilize this product, and it becomes a net zero waste product almost from the brewery aspect. I actually have a neighbor here in Frederick who grew up on a farm that raised pigs, and he remembers National Brewing sending truckloads of grain to his father's farm and dropping it off. And he says, you know, it was the happiest day for those pigs. They were always happy to
we brewed a stout a couple weeks ago that we'll be releasing very shortly. And our farmer said that was like the happiest day for his livestock. That tasty stout malt, they just loved it. Also, full circle of what Matt was saying. That original system that we now use as a pilot system, our brewers did fire that up yesterday, as he said, and we actually are going to be dry hopping that with hops from the farm. So we're still keeping that going.
Yeah. Matt, were you shaking your head that it actually fired up?
No, I'm sorry.
Somebody wanted to talk to us. We were like, we're drinking beer. No, thank you.
Leave us alone. That's awesome. I love the idea of being able to take that piece of history with you as you go. You know, you hear some of these larger breweries, and actually there was a great story about Sierra Nevada and their original system the other day. They actually refurbished it and threw it on a truck, and all of a sudden a brewery kind of around the corner from them had some issues, and they were able to drive it right over to this other brewery and let them use it. So it's like, you know, seeing those old systems that kind of made your mark come back into play is a really neat thing to experience.
Yeah, I read that too. That was, again, Sierra is just top marks all the way across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was tooling around on your Instagram earlier this week. You guys were talking about a re-release of some fun beers. Dank Memes is coming back. Did you get that canned earlier this week?
Yeah. So
Dank Memes is out.
So Dank Memes is out. You know, obviously, Jim, you know, it's freaking phenomenal. I mean, you know, we talk about when we discuss pop culture at the beginning of this, but at the same time, you know, life moves at us so fast. I mean, I saw today that, you know, there's a brewery that I think it's called like I forget who the brewery was, but I saw that they are releasing a beer with the bee on, with the fly that was on top of Mike Pence's, head. It's just insane. I mean, it was literally, less than 24 hours from happening. They're already like, yep, we're releasing this product. Here you go. Come and get it. But yeah, our Dank memes is kind of really, there's some underlying story there, but Dank memes is just a label and a concept to really just have fun. It's not trying to be political. It's not trying to be, pervasive. It's just like, let's just have fun, right? Craft beer is supposed to be fun. We're not supposed to take ourselves so serious. And, Dank memes from the first one, which was Smudge Lord. It was really funny. So the white cat that was eating the lettuce, etc. And I think the girls from the Desperate Housewives was yelling at the cat. That was our very first one. It was just at that time, I think it was November of last year. That meme was just across all social platforms. And I came to the guys and I said, we just have to use this somehow. I'm like, I don't know how, but I mean, you want to talk about just a label or an image that just blew up and that almost every single person knew. I was like, we have to do that. And then the second iteration was, I'll get yelled at by the Star Wars nerds, but was Baby Yoda. We used him in the image. We used it in the image, and ironically enough, a lot of people are like, oh, Disney's going to come after you. They did not register that mark, and I was blown away by that. And so that was Dank Memes V2, and V3 I think was the Jealous Girlfriend. That's the one where the guy is looking back at a girl that's walking by, and the girl's looking in disgust. The fourth version is the one where it's how did you survive the pandemic, and it was like kind of a mix on words. To kind of basically slurring the words as the dad was drinking. And the little kid sitting there saying "freaking legend." It's just certain images are appropriate at certain times, and the latest iteration is actually Leonardo DiCaprio sitting there and with his little smug face from Django Unchained, and it was just really funny kind of how that one came about, because you remember Kara, right? Mm-hmm. So Kara and Nick actually still part of us. They actually design all those ones for us. They're still doing all the printing, the design for us with those labels. And Kara came back and said, "Hey, well, what do you think about this?" And inside of the coffee cup, instead of the coffee cup or inside of the whiskey cup that he was drinking, he has another can, and inside of that can is the Dank memes. And then you keep seeing it, and the very top of it says, Inception beer meme. So we're gonna keep having fun with it. Of the 5 iterations, 4 of them have been a pale ale, and so the backstory on that and why it was a pale ale is next year we're gonna release that pale ale. One of the iterations, again, we talked about Excellent Adventure, where we just try to keep making it better and better and better. That's what we've used on this platform with Dank Memes, is just try to make this pale ale to be the best one, so that next year it's in our core brand portfolio. But the origin story on that beer was our second release last year in June, which was our Hal and Oats, which was all Hallertau hops and heavily oated. We took Private Eyes from Hall & Oates, and we used that as the label. And I for sure was like, it's never going to come on anyone's radar. Like, there's no chance that Hall & Oates will ever see this. It's not like we sent them anything. It's not like we ever really tagged them in anything. I was like, there's no way. Well, fast forward 3 months later, we get a C&D in the mail from Certified Mail, cease and desist for using the label. And I was like, this is amazing. Of course, I'm going to keep this. We're going to mount it. I responded back in kind, and I said, we fully comply with, because they were really nice about it. They said, we see that you're not doing this, out of malicious intent or anything else like that. They were really nice about it. But they just kindly asked that we would finish the sale of what we had, and then kind of lose the imagery, lose the kind of communication about it. And I obviously agreed. I was like, no problem. And, it was just, that was kind of what sparked that hazy pale ale, was just the cease and desist from Hall & Oates. So it was kind of awesome. And it's framed inside of our office.
It sounds like their lawyer may have an idea of how the beer industry works. There's very often a C&D that's like, you better stop this, and they don't realize like the beer's probably been gone by the time the letter arrives to the brewery, and it will never come back.
Yeah, no, it was definitely gone. Again, it was 3 months later. It was definitely gone, but somebody kept tagging us in social media in it, and they were like, well, you said it was all gone. I'm like, I promise it's not us.
Yeah, it may still be in the trade because people purchased it and it's in their fridge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's great. And I think the Dank memes thing is funny. It's always, it's a great way for people to have fun with the beer. Stop taking yourself so seriously. Enjoy what's going on. I mean, this is a community where people should be embracing fun. And as long as you're not hurting anybody with your label, I think that's
pretty good. Yeah, no, I mean, we have to be neutral, right? I mean, you take it for wherever you want, but I think that beer really should be neutral. You can take a stand for anything you want. Believe me, I'm not saying that it's not a good thing to take a stand. I'm just saying sometimes it's nice to kind of just be on both sides of the fence and just say, we're just gonna skirt this line. We're not gonna, if we fall, we're gonna offend somebody on one side or the other. They're just gonna keep skirting this line and just say, see what happens. But to your exact point, let's talk about Buzz the Tower for just 1 second. And when you first had that, and I'm asking a question, when you first had that, were you like, oh yeah, that's just another beer, or were you like, whoa, there's more to it. There's something else here than just like a normal beer, right?
Well, I immediately tasted what was going on with that beer, and I think as soon as I tasted it, the first thing that I said was, whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a beer that is it's a departure from what you expect when you're used to seeing what's going on in the marketplace. You have added an element to this beer, and I'll let you tell the story about what's in it, but you've added an element to this beer that really kind of takes you for a ride as the drinker. And it is like a buckle in. This is cool. Like your palate's doing something new. And I think it's great, but it is more than just what you think it is.
Yeah.
If that answers your question.
And I think that is the true intent. It's especially with a lot of these releases we have, it's not, we just don't put something together and then just throw it away and then say, okay, well, eventually, we're not looking at it as just like, all right, let's just make a few bucks on this and then just like forget about it. We want to have it so that every single one of these releases, it incites a conversation. We want to have it so that there are, it's not just one person in a, I know it's pandemic and social distance, etc. But, we just don't want to have these beers so that they're forgotten in a closet somewhere. We want them drank.
And we put a lot of thought into, how to make them. I mean, like Buzz the Tower, obviously, you get that huge raspberry note. It's a kettle sour with a raspberry, but we also used, a scant bit of coffee and kind of cold brewed the coffee in there. Not to make it like a coffee forward beer or anything like that, but we were really hoping, that mix of like raspberry and chocolate. And so like if we get some of like the cocoa out of like that coffee and we pick the right blend of beans and all of that so that we would get that just that hint of like chocolate and a hint of coffee, but really raspberry forward. And we released that simultaneously with a Hazy Vibrant Vines, where the thought on that wasn't just like, oh, throw these hops in. It was actually conceptualized as, a white wine drinker's hazy IPA. And so the idea was like take all of the notes of like the guava and the gooseberry and the floral aspects of like a Marlboro Soft Blanc, and let's see that in a beer. And so, it is technically a hazy IPA, but, it really reminds me of drinking a Marlboro Soft. So, and that's the goal. I mean, that's the kind of thing we're not just like choosing hops and being like, okay, Galaxy go. And then, we have a concept that we're trying to achieve, and, we really try to, do as best we can in doing that.
So I bought a 4-pack of Buzz the Tower when I was visiting you guys, and I just finished my last one while we were having this conversation. But every time I've drunk this beer, I am more and more blown away by how, as a coffee drinker, you often find notes of fruit that are subtly hinted to in the type of roast or the type of coffee bean that was used. With this, it's almost as though the coffee is accentuating a characteristic in the raspberry that's always been there, but you never realized it until that flavor is there. And then you're like, oh my goodness, that's what that is.
Yeah.
And it's like it pulls out the like vanilla character of a raspberry. Like your mind is always used to like a raspberry cream. So like you're drinking this and all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's like hints of vanilla. And even if they're not added to the beer, your mind starts to play that trick because of familiarity. So I think it's a stunning beer, and I think you guys did a hell of a job with it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It was very. I don't want to say it's definitely not one dimensional, but when it came to the ingredients, I mean, we believe that the ingredients should tell the message, and it was raspberry and Choco Sombra dark roast coffee. I mean, that's the ingredients, and then but to your exact point, you pick up so much more from those, and the two items, in conjunction with each other, just worked, and we'll keep trying to be creative and keep trying to sort of speak, push the boundaries of perception as to what should and should not, so to speak, go together, and what will and will not work.
Well, we are just a couple of minutes from the end of this. I would like to give you guys an opportunity to say whatever you like about how people can enjoy Calvert Brewing Company's beer, where they can come to visit you. How can they support what you guys are doing as a brewery and what your goals are?
Yeah, I'll just get off my soapbox after this 20 seconds. But, so ultimately we are. I mean, we're a burgeoning craft brewery. We will work hard every single day. You were talking about evolution of beer, et cetera. And quite frankly, that was kind of my mindset of coming here is that we want to constantly evolve. We want to constantly grow. Jesus, I can't talk. What we want. But we'd like to grow every single day. And we believe in constant improvement. Come hell or high water, we're going to constantly improve, and that's kind of my mindset, and I think our philosophy here within the beer itself. It will always be different, with a few exceptions of certain beers like our lager. I don't want to touch it, but ultimately, yeah, it's you can come down to the tasting room. You can look for us in DC. Again, Craft Coalition kills it for us, but yeah, I mean, pretty much up and down. If you don't see us in a retailer, please ask. They will listen. So that's all I have. I mean, now
I know, my goal is to just keep making good beer for you all to drink. And so, if ever your glass is looking like mine, think about pouring a Calvert in it. So there you go.
Any of our astute viewers today may not realize that there's like a whole sneak peek to the rest of the year right behind you. So
yeah, I realized that while we were in there. I was like, oh, okay.
Zoom in tight and hold these guys to the fire. And if you haven't decided on a label yet for the Dank Memes Volume 6, you need the little girl standing in front of the burning down house with the evil smile on her face, because that just sums up what 2020 has been all about.
We'll just put on the label. It's just Dank Memes V6, maybe not another.
Yeah. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for what you're doing to be excellent members and stewards of the craft beer industry here in the state. We appreciate everything. Be prepared to help us share out all the information about the collaborative project next week. And cheers. Keep up the great work. For everybody that tuned in this afternoon, have a safe and happy weekend. Enjoy it with some craft beer made in Maryland. We've got some great breweries. They're all open for you to come out and support them. You can buy their beer at your local retailer, directly through the brewery for curbside pickup or carry out in most cases. Most breweries are still offering delivery options, so check into those. And drink local. We really appreciate it. Visit marylandbeer.org and tune in next week. Talk to you all later.
See you guys.
See you. Thanks, Jim.